The Legacy Files with Grant Cameron.
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Grant Cameron, and this is the Legacy Files. I'm joined by my co-author, partner, research partner, Desta Barnaby from out east. I'm here in Vancouver, and a couple of last shows I forgot to mention if you like this kind of stuff, you can go to our website, presidentialufo.com to
Org.
get
.org.
sorry, presidentialufo.org. It used to be .com, but now it's .org. And pick up material that we're going to be talking about. We've got a lot of articles. We're going to start putting some audio stuff, and make sure you subscribe because we want to get to our 2 million subscribers by December. So make sure you click and subscribe and make some comments as to because we talk about a lot of different stuff and we gather material, and we'd be happy to hear your story. And we do all paranormal phenomena. We don't just do UFOs because we realize as we used to have we have still the website, and the website was called It's All Connected, which is all one word. It's all connected, and it is all connected. If you take a look at the all the paranormal phenomena, we've just come out with a book, book one, called The Big Game, and it's on paranormal phenomena. And what we're making is the fact that if you start looking at all these paranormal phenomena, you'll see these crossovers. That it'll appear in one phenomena, and because we've seen so many phenomena, we know okay, it also occurs in this phenomena, it occurs in this phenomena, and it moves across. And this is one of two books. So the first book on the psychic stuff, paranormal stuff, is out, and you can pick that up at Amazon. And we're the second book we'll put out in 2 months. We've got a bunch of books backed up. Desta's just got a book coming out on children, MK Ultra with children, which is a fascinating book. What's the name of it?
MK Ultra for Children, The Hunt for Psychic Abilities, and the GATE program.
There you go. So this is everybody knows about MK Ultra, and Des is going to take it to the next level. She may actually been sort of a part of this program, and she talks about the fact that we've known, again, it's a crossover. We know that you take young children, they can remember past lives because their left brain is not online yet. They can see through blindfolds in about 15 minutes when you're training them to see stuff. They're very receptive to paranormal phenomena, where you have a lot of them that are in the sort of the abduction program. You'll see that they have their first encounters back when they're 2, 3 years old. So you basically see that children have been used by programs to try to psychic driving and stuff like this. So Desta's written a book on some of these programs and the use of children, and I think it's probably going to be sell pretty well because everybody knows about MK Ultra, but you've added another level to this. So we're gonna go on today, unless you got a comment on that. But no, no comment. Okay, so we're gonna go. Desta is a channeler, and I always maintain Desta does everything, but she does channeling, and I've always maintained that in order to figure out what's going on, I see my UFO in 75. All I'm interested in after I see the second one is one thing. It's like somebody's got to know what's going on here. Who do I go to? Because I don't know what's going on, but somebody has to know what's going on. So I start this thing. I go to the Canadian government first to find out what the Canadian government knew. That led to Dr. Eric Walker, the former president of Penn State University. I study him. Then that led to the president of the United States. I figured, well, the president of the United States has got to know what's going on. He's the most powerful guy in the world. I went there to find out UFO story, and it just went on and on and on. And it ended up where I came to the conclusion that in order to know what's going on with the UFO phenomena, paranormal phenomena, you got to talk to the people who are in contact with the intelligence. You look at all the lights in the sky that you want flying around. That will tell you, yeah, something's going on. But it's not until you talk to somebody who's actually able to tap into whatever this is, and that's when you find out. So the theory I've come to is that there is a field, and I think Desta agrees with this. There's a field that basically has all the material. If you take a look at UFO contactees who claim that they had contact with non-human intelligence, 40% say at one point during their experience they knew the answer to everything in the universe. In near-death experiences, 31% say at one point during their experience they knew the answer to everything in the universe, which tends to hint that there is all the materials out there, and it's the ability to tap in. So Desta and I wrote a book a number of years ago called Contact Modalities, and the idea behind that was there are 70 plus things that we showed, like drumming, pain, meditation, hypnosis, all these different types of things where people could get through the veil, they could break the veil, they could get into the field, and they could obtain material. So I've always said that the people that you want to watch are the people who claim and can prove to some degree that they can get in the field. And the one that I've really latched onto is channelers. So Desta does some channeling. So maybe talk a little bit about that, and then I'll get to the channeler where I'm doing a book on a channeler. And I actually this morning I just let Desta know we actually take this major channeler, like basically he was the Edgar Casey of the 19th century, and we put it up against what Desta says, and we get to compare what he said and what Desta said. So talk a little bit about your form of channeling. Yours is a little bit different than most people are familiar with.
My form of, I don't know. I know that I just recently kind of figured out because of that MK Ultra book and because of the gate program and stuff that I never would have thought that the reason that I can connect like that is because of dissociation. I never thought of that, but because of stuff that I've just been researching, I guess I think that that's one of the I think that's the reason. So I just wrote a book called about psychic abilities 5 months ago or something in May. And I that whole book is about me talking about how you have to have this special place in your head. It's basically like they say, find your special place, before you start a meditation. So I was like, find your special place, and you go to that place, and then it's just kind of to calm you down or whatever. But I just published that book and was sure that that's what I was doing, is finding this special place. And then I started writing the MK Ultra book. And now I think that that special place isn't maybe what I was doing. It's just or it is a form of dissociation. So I think that a way that most people dissociate, whether you're saying you're dissociating, meaning you're like switching off the or whether you're switching off, like we used to say it, left brain, right brain. So you can say that no matter what, if you're channeling, you have to completely shut down the left brain and you're moving into your right brain to be able to connect with messages and to not be thinking and to not have your filter go too crazy, or you're not going to receive the message properly. So that's how my old view of what it was. But now I just think it's actually dissociation based on a bunch of other experiences that I've had. And so, but it's kind of the same thing. That is even the same thing. So dissociation, whether you're talking about a person that actually has dissociative identity disorder, or multiple personality disorder, they used to call it, which is just shifting, and they're just switching. They call it switching, and they're switching between different alters that they've made up, right? With different personalities, and it's happening to protect the traumatized child, usually, or all the time. So, but I think it's the same thing. The dissociation is just you switching out of this left brain part, possibly alters. You're switching to different compartments that the child has made within the left brain, and switching to a different one, switching to a different one. So whether you're switching between alters or shutting down the left brain and going into the right brain, I don't even hardly know what the difference is. But I know in MK Ultra, one of the sub projects, which is called Sub Project 136, what they were doing is noticing that when people, channelers, mediums, and children were switching or dissociating, that psychic phenomena immediately followed. So they were purposely trying to do this to people to then see what the psychic abilities were, why they would do it, and what information they were getting from that psychic state. So I don't even know I've never been told what I do. I've never really thought about it, but I know that I'm definitely, it's a light trance at the beginning that gets deeper to the point where by the end of the channeling session, I don't remember anything that I'm typing at all. And when I reread it, I'm like shocked to see what I have written, because I was basically sleeping at the end, but somehow still typing. So whatever that means, I don't know. I've never asked anyone. I don't know if it's like deep trance, starting from light trance, going into deep trance, shutting your left brain down, dissociate. I don't really know how to describe it, but that's my
Yeah. I think
theories around whatever it is.
Yeah, I think dissociation is a good term because we had that chapter or two chapters in contact modalities where we talk about trauma. There
Mhm.
always seem to be trauma involved. Where you have the Brazilian mediums that there was like whatever 80% were uh, uh, had childhood abuse issues, and it's sort of like when you can get that dissociation thing. Or I used to make the joke about like, why does an alien come into your room and go, Desta, 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 wake up, Desta. And then you wake up and you go, oh my God. And he's like, hey, look, I'm an evil looking alien. And then of course, you dissociate. But even I had this woman, I told you about this woman from Vancouver Island that hopefully we'll get an interview with because I know her story. But she talks about the same thing, pulled the covers over her head. And I said, if I had a dime for every time I heard someone when an alien was in the room where they pulled the covers over their head, like that's going to help you. Like, and then you go to sleep. I pulled the covers over my head and went to sleep. It's like, yeah, really, sure you did. And it's this
Yeah.
dissociation thing where what other reason would they have to wake you up and scare the living daylights out of you? And they go, okay, Desta's ready to go. She's dissociated. Okay, let's take her.
Yeah.
And it's like they're forcing this, and you see this trauma thing over and over again. And now I see other people talking about this as well in the paranormal stuff where they talk about this dissociation. And but I think you and I were first. That was a number of years ago we wrote that book, and we had picked this up. And I wasn't too sure about it then, but now I'm a little more assured. And you even get this thing where no, I won't go in that aspect because we want to get to the thing where we were doing a book on music, which it's almost done. I just had, in fact, I may be able to send it to you and you can just sort of fill in the little gaps. There's really not much left to do. I had done the one on music with musicians and how many of them were experiencers and this kind of stuff with UFOs. But I had these other stories of people who got entire symphonies, and I've got about three of
Mm.
them where they walked around for 30 years with a symphony in their head and didn't have any background in music and were able to get somebody to put this down on paper for them and stuff like that. And these really bizarre stories are the one guy who could listen to four symphonies at the same time in his head. And they actually took him into an MRI at Penn State University, and he proved that he could listen to four symphonies at the same time and slow the symphonies down
Wow.
and go from one symphony to another and listen to one person. He could smell the dust in the curtains. He could smell the rosin of the bows. And these four symphonies, where there's two on the stage. One was in the music pit in the front, and one was in a hole underneath this the stage. And these bizarre stories that again show you that if you think you understand how the world works, you haven't a clue because you start looking at this stuff. And so I was going to do the music book, and then I just got sidetracked for whatever reason on this channeler, Andrew Jackson Davis. I was looking at this association. We'd done a book called The Gifted, which we haven't released. It's been done for quite a while. And one of the chapters in there is 1848. And the idea was from Gifted was the fact that if you look back on history, you start to look at things like, for example, the LSD. If you take a look at LSD when it was discovered and the nuclear chain reaction, it was within a couple of months of each other. And it's like, what's the chances that one of the most devilish things that ever was invented, nuclear chain reaction,
Mm.
would be associated with this opening of LSD, which was 25,000 experiments the guy had done on drugs, and it was the only one he did twice. And he discovered it the second time by an accident. He got on his finger or something, and this accident. And you start to say, are these things accident or were these planned? That these things.
Mm.
And the big one that was always there was if you take a look at the spiritualist revolution that led to the end of the Civil War, the slave, women's right to vote, all that kind of stuff, all came out of the spiritual revolution, which was started by the Fox sisters in 1848. These two young girls who heard the story was they heard this rapping and they were talking to dead people, and that led to mediums to whatever it was, one fifth of the U.S. Population was spiritualists. There was mediums all over the place, and because women had no rights to do anything, the mediums had all the power because people were listening to mediums, and that's how they had so much power to stop the slaves and all that kind of stuff. Because these women are so highly respected by being mediums. But it all started in 1848. And then I discovered accidentally that, so that's the spiritualist side. And if you take a look at the materialist side, that happened the same year, 1848. That was the Communist Manifesto that was written by Marx and Engels, which was the whole idea that no, there is no God. It's all just matter. There's nothing to it. It's just this control of the means of production and all this kind of stuff. It's all economy. There's no God. It's the opiate of the people, all this kind of stuff. So you got this materialist side and the spiritual side both started the same year. So I was always fascinated. Is that an actual coincidence? And when I was doing AI, it suddenly popped up that there was a medium who had written a book, a channeled book in 1847, which was the year before. What I've discovered since, and his name was Andrew Jackson Davis. So I got down this rabbit hole and I started, who is this guy? I've never heard of this guy before. And because I had seen your channeling and we'd done a lot of stuff on channeling, I said, man, I've never heard of this guy before. And I started to look and it looked like he was like the Edgar Cayce of the 1900s. He was just like, apparently he was very famous. He sold as many books as Darwin. When he published,
Wow.
he was selling, and Darwin was the same time. Darwin came out about 10 years after 1848, 1859. It was about 10 years later, and his again was this materialist view that it was all just random. It was just there was
Mm.
no God. It was just all happening by accident, this sort of thing. So when I looked at Davis, I started seeing these bizarre things, and the one I probably haven't told you about, the Fox sisters. So you take a look at the connection. I said, well, did he know who the Fox sisters were? And then they show the Fox sisters happened March the 31st, 1848. That morning, Davis got a vision that said
Wow.
there was going to be physical demonstration that would change the world, and it
Oh,
was
wow.
the same day this vision. So he wrote this down in his
Wow.
diary, and this was a guy almost like Edgar Cayce. Edgar Cayce had no training, no education really. Davis had 5 months education. That's all he had. He had just basically illiterate. And he had trauma as a kid. His father was alcoholic. It was basically the same story. Edgar Casey's father was sort of very violent, knocked him off the chair. Both started with hypnosis. There was this mesmerism thing that was going
Mm.
on. And the first time they tried to hypnotize Davis, he wouldn't go under. The second time, he went deeply under. And that's when they started to realize that he could do this kind of stuff. So they both started the same way, the same as Seth. When she started channeling, she didn't start channeling. She started doing the Ouija board,
Yeah.
and then suddenly she could pick up what was coming on the Ouija board before it went on the Ouija board. So you start seeing these parallels between them. So I started going down and I started to look at this. So this book will be coming out, and it's probably my favorite book because it's just so bizarre that I didn't know this guy existed, and it's just the stuff he did was so amazing. So what we do, just to make a long story short, is I take a look at it and I said, the story is always put out on channelers. Well, Desta's channeling. She's just making it up. Anybody can do that. And I always say to people, I got $1,000 bet that says you can't channel. You think you can channel? I'll give you what Paul Selleck does, who's one of the people I look at in the book. Paul Selleck is a guy who whispers and repeats. And everybody says, I hate that. And I said, well, I think that's why the intelligence does it, because they want it to be so annoying. You figure, like, how does this guy do this? How can he do this?
Mm.
So he takes half a sentence, he whispers, and then he repeats it. Now half a sentence, he whispers and repeats. Half a sentence, he goes on for 40 minutes, and then he'll do an entire book, 300-page book, and there's no edits done. There's no ums, ahs, well, I think, all that kind of stuff that you'll see in any transcript that people will do this. They string sentences together. Channelers don't do that. When channeling is done, it's completely clean. There's none of that
Mm.
stuff. And I said, if you can do that, if you can whisper and repeat half a sentence and go for 40 minutes, and I'll give you the subject to talk about, and you can do that, you got $1,000. There's no way you're going to do it. Anybody who's seen a transcript from YouTube or looking at it, you'll know that you stumble around and you string stuff together. So I looked at Davis, and so the idea was, well, people are making it up. So what I did was I took all the major channelers. So I take Seth, of course. I take Jay-Z Knight, who everybody says was a total fraud. Remember, you and I went to her compound. She lives in the middle of nowhere in Washington State, in was it Yoke? This little tiny
You,
dumpy,
yeah.
yeah,
You?
Yeah, a
something like
little
that.
dumpy town. It's the only thing in the whole town is this big compound that she has. And so I took Jay-Z Knight with Ramtha, and everybody said, "Well, she's a fraud." So I said, "Okay, let's compare." So what we do is we take used AI, and I
And
said, "Okay,
Bashar, you put Bashar there too?
Bashar, and Abraham. And then this morning I added you. I said, send me your two books. So you sent me your two channeling books. And then I put them through AI and I said, compare it to Davis. So I take Davis and I say, what are the main components of Davis's channeling? And they give me 39 different things that Davis talked about. Everything is one, which is just one of them. Everything's connected, everything's one thing. So then I take all those 39 things and I compare them to Seth. And then I say, to the AI, compare them to Seth and compare them to Abraham, and it's like 99, 97% agreement. Absolutely. It's
Mm.
unbelievable. And
Hmm.
this morning we put yours together. I said, you take the books. I say, take these two books, channeled by Desta, and compare them to the 39 things that Davis said in 1847 in this channeled book that he did. Actually did it between 1844 and 1847 when they published the book, and compare them, and complete agreement. It's like everybody's getting the same message as
Yeah.
if, it's 175 years between your channelings and his channelings. And basically, you look at it and it's the same message over and over and over again,
Yeah.
which is dramatic. So that's a book that's coming out, and we look at it. So we do actually do predictions. So I said like the same thing I do with you and with Margie. So you get a question like I'll ask Margie, okay, what about time and space? Is there time and space? And you ask hers is called the guides. So she goes to the guides. So the one of the chapters that I did was I said, okay, if you had a channeler, science thinks they know everything, but then you have, I think it's 125 problems that science hasn't solved. Deepak Chopra always talks about this all the time. And the number one is consciousness. Or number two is consciousness. Number
Mm.
one is what is the universe made out of? Number two is what is consciousness? So you have these problems that science can't answer. So I take 10 of the top 10 problems that science can't answer, and I say, well, let's ask Davis. Let's ask Seth. Let's ask all these different channelers, what do you say is the answer to this thing? And basically, again, you see the agreement
Oh, yeah,
between
good.
all these different things. And I think that's what channeling is leading us to. Once you start to understand that this may be real, you can actually start tapping into this and asking questions as to how all this stuff works. And to me, that's the only way you can actually solve the paranormal phenomena. Is there's something behind it. I call it the intelligence, whatever you want to call it. There's something behind orchestrating all this stuff, and you've got to be able to interact with it. And the channelers are good because it's like the experiment I'm doing, and I've got another trance channeler who's agreed to do it. Is the idea that you have relay channelers that will, or relay mediums or relay channelers, where say a relay medium, they'll say, oh, there's somebody's got a beard, he looks, say he's about, he's got glasses, he's got a beard, oh, that's my uncle, and they're seeing symbols, they're seeing pictures and stuff, but they got to translate it, and they may translate it wrong, whereas a trance medium will actually, as I said, there'd be no edits in the book. It'll just go from one, as if you're actually talking to this person. You can ask them questions, and there's no guessing, there's no symbols, stuff like that. So I always see trance channeling as extremely important to do. And when I found this guy and found out that he had sold as many books as Darwin had at that period, and that he was actually very famous, and he just sort of disappeared. There hasn't been a book written on him in maybe, I don't know, 100 years. There's been a couple of articles written on him, but they're basically he disappeared into nowhere. I didn't
Mm.
know the guy existed, and I thought,
Hmm.
I knew all the channelers, and because we'd done in the contact modalities, we did a whole chapter on different channelers and stuff like that. And this guy just slipped through the cracks. So, what do you think about this? You haven't seen the manuscript yet, but
Mm-mm. Well,
I
I didn't
was
know
I
you
knew
took
your stuff
the,
was going to be.
oh, thank you. I didn't know you took the 10. I didn't know you did that through AI. So I didn't know you compared what the top 39 things were. And then you asked AI what the top 10 unknown, like
Yeah,
scientific discoveries
yeah.
that they don't know the answers to. And then you asked, and then went to
I,
see
I
the
didn't go to
channeling.
the I didn't go to the I did Davis. I said I went to three. I went to Grok, I went to Pilot, and I went to DeepSeek. And I said, okay, here's the question. How would Davis answer the question? And Grok said
Oh,
Davis would say this about it, and then I would ask the next one, And then I compared it to that whole thing. We won't get into this whole Serafina thing. I asked Serafina, so that was the whole thing was, and I guess I should try to maybe compare the channelers as well. If you had any sort of thing, like
Oh,
take a look at
interesting.
Desta's two books and see if she has any answers to the 10 questions to see if there's agreement. Because what
Yeah, that's a good
basically
idea.
you would see, like everybody would give the same answer to what is consciousness, what is the universe made out of, all these kind of things. Where I was surprised how fast AI put it out as to what Davis would say on this thing, and yet science
Interesting.
says they really don't have any answer. And if you start looking at their explanations, you see, I was actually shocked a little while ago where I was looking at a video that was done with what was it? Um, no, it's going to escape me. No, I lost it, but it was an important point, but I lost it. So, yeah, this is the thing is you start poking around in there, and he did. I did the medical stuff, so I compare his medical stuff because he did medical readings the same as Edgar
Yeah.
Casey, and I compare it to Edgar Casey, and I take a look at the major sort of inventions like. He talks about the fluid. There's like the ether type thing, but there's a thing that underpins everything, and that would be the 0 point energy field, and that
Mm.
everything's coming out of there. And you start looking at all this kind of stuff, and you have to sort of do some interpretation. But basically, he was basically on everything. The only thing that he missed, and I asked, I went don't know where I went, but I went to a number of places to find out why did he miss. The thing he missed on that he absolutely got nothing on was they started asking about other planets, and he claimed that his two soul guides were Swedenborg and some Greek guy, some
Galen.
Greek
Galen.
Galen. Yeah, these were his two spirit guides. But Swedenborg also was talking about people on other planets, and
Mm.
so did Davis, and he was just totally off. Like he talked about these beings on Mars and how they lived, and on Jupiter and on the Mercury, and like I mean, maybe there is on some other level, like a fifth dimension or something like that, people living on those planets. But I mean, it was just like a joke what he was saying about
Mm.
these planets. And so I was asking, I can't remember what I asked, but I was saying, like, how could he be so accurate on things and be so far off on this planetary thing? And the explanation he did give that you probably know about is this idea that the farther you get out on a psychic impression of the future, the worse you're going to be. Because it's like they have all these timelines that people still have free will, so they can still choose this or this. That what people are predicting, if they're making a prediction right now, is they're predicting if everything stays the same
Hmm.
and nothing changes, this will happen. But it's going to change because everybody has free will to do different things, and the timeline is going to alter as you go. And the farther you get down the timeline, the more inaccurate the explanation is actually going to be.
The other thing that they say too is that if the channel has no concepts for them to pull on in their brain, then it's
Yeah,
really hard for the explanation to come from the
yeah,
channel because they have to pull on stuff in the brain. And that's what Dolores Cannon wasn't a channel, but Dolores Cannon, the hypnotist, was I remember in those old books, she was always saying like she would be asking the her client that was in trance, like that was hypnotized, she would be asking them because when they were speaking from their higher selves, they were apparently connected. So she would be asking them questions, and she was writing books based on the manuscript of people she was hypnotizing. And a lot of time when they were coming through and saying like, "Hey, Dolores, we want to give you a message," and it's kind of like the person who was being hypnotized was channeling to give Dolores her own message to, and she used to say that she didn't have a very high education. I can't remember if she graduated high school or what exactly it was, but she was saying like, I don't understand. And her books are filled with this. She's like, I don't get it. What are you trying to say? And they had to keep saying, we'll slow it down for you. Eventually you're going to get it. But they had to, it was like that metaphor about you can't eat a steak without I can't remember what the metaphor is, but it's something like she would say that you have to have bite-sized pieces because she couldn't understand what they were saying, so she wouldn't be able to properly understand and give that message back to the reader when she was transcribing it and putting it in a book. So she was basically telling like the being or the energy that was trying to talk to her, like, I have no idea what you're saying, break it down. And so they had to like slowly teach her, so she had a good understanding of what was going on over there because she had no, they were saying like 5D and like, all these weird
Yeah.
concepts of like different timelines. And she didn't even have any, she was just like, what does that even mean? I don't understand what it is. So it could be that too. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah, it's an interpretation. Like he was talking about coaches without horses and stuff like that, or if aerial things flying around in the air. But and
Mm,
unless you know what an airplane is, I mean, this is like
yeah.
70 years before the airplane actually appeared. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
So that's the whole idea is this language thing where, or with the being, where there's always this thing about with the government never uses the word ET, and so you wonder, do they actually know that this thing is not ET? Because you'll get people where they say, no, no, it's actually ET, it's on this planet or whatever. But then you get people when they say, where are you from? And the being says, you wouldn't understand. Well,
Yeah.
what I'm, what would I
Yeah.
not understand? I mean, I'm from Mars or,
Yeah.
I'm from this planet or whatever. And it's the idea that, and I think that's what you find in the paranormal phenomena is it's almost like whether it's macroscopic or microscopic, that the more you look out, the more galaxies there are, and the
Mm,
farther you look down, the more you get more subatomic particles, and it's just more. Whether you go in each direction, it gets more complex, and it just spins out. And
mm,
that when science says they're explaining stuff, I say you're not explaining anything. Science doesn't explain a thing; it describes.
yeah.
The explanation, nobody has any explanation of how does a cell put itself together and stuff like that. What comes first, the seed or the tree, the chicken or the egg? And they
Mm.
think, oh, I'll just skip that question. And no, no, these are the questions you got to answer is that nobody really can get to reality. Reality is just out there. We're looking at these things in between us and reality that are we think are real, and they're actually just sort of like symbolic things that and the
Mm.
farther you get out, if there's a future, people coming back from the future, that it's just so complex that people can't grasp it with the language we have.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And the
So this,
ideas. And same with when you used to say that they used to see UFOs, or even from the old, like the Vedas, from the old Indian
yeah.
scriptures, they were saying that there was like balls of light and all this stuff, and it was that they were seeing, or halos, even in the, what'd you see?
No, I'm just I thought they were gonna take a telephone pole down here. We're gonna get no power, but I'm looking. I got
Oh,
light, so I'm gonna have to plug my computer in after this session here, and then we'll keep going.
okay. Yeah, that's okay. I can't remember what I was saying.
Well, we'll shut it down. But this is an important thing. People pick up Desta's book. Mention your two books because I maintain after 50 years, this is some of the most important material you can read is channeled material. I don't care what anybody says about it. I've got my $1,000 bet that people can't just make it up and channel. It is much more complex than people think it is, and I think it's got a lot more answers than you can imagine, and you that's what you have to do is you got to get as close to the intelligence, as close to the akashic field or whatever you want to talk, people that have this kind of stuff. And I think channelers are very important in terms of pulling material and helping us understand what's actually going on.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, thanks,
Thanks,
and
Grant.
subscribe so we can get 2 million people.
Yeah.